Houston, say again, please.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Hey there folks, welcome you all to podcast number 3, people. We are still on with the podcast. I'm loving this way of doing these little talks of mine so much that I'm continuing the podcast. I'm going to keep doing them, people. I mean, it is much harder for me to, I say much harder. I mean, it takes effort is what I mean, to do this than it is to just sit on the couch, because everything on the couch is in place. And so when I do this, like I've talked about before, I have to move this office chair downstairs. I've got to move the laptop over so that I can get the HDMI into the TV for these lovely screenshots that I give you when I can. Well, wallpaper screenshots, blah. Basically, what I'll try and do with these is they will try and show Xbox, PlayStation, / whatever it is I'm going to talk about that particular day. I might squeeze in some footage when I do these. I haven't tried editing in and out of gameplay footage and making it still look like it's a vloggy type thing, so I might do, because we're talking about some games later on in this particular podcast of mine, and we do have a number of things to talk about this week, people, in the world of gaming. Can I just say to you all, flaggins up, and to those of you that have been watching the first few vlogs, I did not have anywhere to put my beer. So I have, as you can see, a little coaster here, people, a little coaster to put my beer on. And those astute of you will see there's a pair of glasses there as well, which are at the ready for a particular part that we're going to talk about, which I have an article which we're going to refer to in order to get the best possible details. So we have a lot to talk about, actually. I was going to break this into two podcasts. I need to stop using the word vlogs. 2 podcasts. So we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. We're going to be talking about Sony's production on PlayStation 5. We're going to be talking about Xbox Series X Velocity architecture. We're going to be talking about Xbox One X and S ceasing production, and we're going to be talking about the releases of some big games, all not that, well, pretty close together apart from one. And I've watched the trailers of all of them, which I might throw up some footage of. There's been some recent footage of them as well, so we're going to talk about those, most of which are Ubisoft. So let's kick off. We got, people, or I did. I got Ghost of Tsushima today. Ghost of Tsushima. I keep saying Ghosts of Tsushima. It's Ghost of Tsushima. It's the guy, it's you, it's the ghost. And for the longest time, I think some of my videos still say on the channel Ghosts with an S on it. I've been too lazy to go and change it. I'll have a sip of this before I get going. Oh, it's nice, people, it's nice. I'm tucking into it a bit later than I would normally as well today, because, people, I'll tell you this, and we'll talk about it in a second, because it's all to do with Ghost of Tsushima. It arrived today, in fact, it's here. It's the Steelbook edition. Well, it was the special edition, so I also get the soundtrack and some unlock keys and all sorts of stuff. So it comes in this Steelbook cover. I've now got 5 of these now that I've got the Uncharted one as well. The Last of Us Part 2. And I keep saying that I'm going to do a little, as part of one of the podcasts or vlogs, I'll show off the little collection of steelbooks that I've got properly, and the 2 bookends that are coming, that they're going to sit between. But I still, to this day, have not been able to pay the bloody custom fee on the bookends in order to get them. So I'm still sat here, 30 quid down or whatever it was, and I've still not got them. It's a tight working environment, this, people. Anyway, it arrived today, and I have been hammering it all week at work, and I've been working quite late in the evenings because I've been yet again on a bit of a roll with my coding and battling away and cracking on. So today I decided to pull some of that time back as flexi time and took half a day. Ghost arrived. I keep saying it, people. Ghost of Tsushima arrived probably about 12. No, it was about 11 actually, because it was due to arrive at 11:30 according to Amazon, and it arrived at about 11, I think. So I knew at that point, I shoved it in and let it install while I was working. And so basically that my plan was to record a couple of episodes for you guys and then do this podcast. But in order to record the stuff and then have it ready to render and put the intros and outros, all that stuff on it. So I had, when I'd finished recording 2 parts for you, which I have done, and they're ready now, and I've not got them rendered, but I've got all of the editing done. And when I say editing, I only put the intros and outros on people. I don't edit in between. So, but making those intros and outros, because it's a new video, so whenever it's a new game that I have never done before, I have to get I basically set up like an image or images for the intro outro, and then I render a little movie that is the intro and outro for that game, and then I make a template for all the other videos I'll do, like part 1, part 2, part 3. So it's only the first one that takes a bit of extra work. So I had to do all of that when I finished recording the 2 parts. So I finished recording the 2 parts about 3, then started editing everything together, got all that sorted out, then I wanted to grab some screenshots for this little slideshow on the TV for this podcast. So anyway, by the time I got everything done, it was just a bit later cracking into things. But it was nice to be able to sit and play the first couple of hours of Ghost of Tsushima. And I have to tell you, people, it is absolutely brilliant. I mean, I love it. I've only played 2 hours of it. I've barely scratched the surface of what my character's capable of doing in a battle. Only just used my first upgrade point. The style of it, the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it plays, the cutting in and out of going from cutscene into gameplay back to cutscene is instant. It's practically instantaneous. It's like a 1-second screen, and it's just seamless. It's so good from what I've seen, and I've not seen a game with that much style for a long time. And I think it's brilliant. I didn't know there was that many leaves in the world. Never mind in Japan, you know what I mean? The leaves are falling, people. I tell you what, there's about 1,000 a minute falling from the trees. But it is absolutely stunning. It is really nice looking. And, I mean, you'll hear this a lot, right? It's not like you don't look at the characters in the thing and think, well, that's the most amazing, facial features I've ever seen in a character or anything like that. I mean, they're great, they're fine. It's more the environment and the entire way it's put together. Like, you can't have the pristine accuracy of something like The Last of Us Part 2 visually on faces and characters, and then have the open world environment and stuff. I mean, it was the same with Horizon Zero Dawn. Horizon Zero Dawn is a really good looking game, but it really plays off the fact that it is, I still don't think that game as character levels live up to an Uncharted, an Uncharted 4 or a Last of Us Part 2, but that's because they're not open world games. They don't have to spend resources on an open world. So that balance still has to be found. And this is the best open world game I've seen, I think, period, for style. Without any shadow of a doubt, it is the best one for style. I mean, it is amazing. And it's little things as well. I noticed, like, in a lot of games, it's like you get a lot of flat ground and then you get a hill and then you get a mountain. And there's very little contour in between other than a rock or rocks. You know what I mean? Like, there's no... In this game, you look at a grass area in front of you, and it'll actually have almost like a crevice in the middle. Like, the contours in the landscape are just incredible. Contours was the word I was looking for. The contours are incredible, so it immediately makes the area look interesting, because you can't see straight everywhere for ages. You've got to go and look and see the pummels of smoke coming up, and and it feels like a world you want to go and have a wander about and investigate. I mean, it's just, honestly, so much style. Really chuffed with it. And I'm looking forward to cracking into much more of it. I'm not going to play anymore till Sunday, so you guys can let me know if you enjoy the ones that I've put up enough to see some more. I don't want to get back into recording an entire Let's Play per se, because I don't think I've got that in me. We've talked about that already, but this is the way this started with Let's Plays, to be fair. I didn't create the channel to be a Let's Play channel. It just kind of became that to some extent, but none of there's only a few Let's Plays on my channel that I actually finish. It was always the intent that I would just show off some of a game, and if that turned into a gazillion people watching the Let's Play, then that's fine. But inevitably, you get great views for the first couple, then it tails off. But Anyway, I've recorded a couple. They'll be going up between whether I put one up tonight or not. Probably not. They'll probably go up tomorrow and Sunday. I think would be more sensible to give the podcast I'm doing now some breathing room. So, but I mean, absolutely brilliant. And the reviews that came in for it before I'd even received it were cracking. I mean, IGN gave it a 9 out of 10, and that immediately was like, oh, thank the Lord, because I wasn't expecting anyone to give it as high as that. I was expecting 8s and some 7s. But the last I looked at Metacritic on, and this is not on, asshole reviews like me and you. This is on the professionals, people, the professionals. It was sitting at a score of 83 overall out of 91 pro reviews. And that's, to me, that is outstanding for an original IP from a studio like that. I think that's outstanding. And to be fair, I think even at that, it's been from the few hours I've played, I think it might have been slightly hard done by. But I have to take that as fair, because there's only 9 of those reviews that are in the yellow. All the others are green, so they're all great or amazing. So you cannot say better. I mean, for a first time out for an IP, I mean, most IPs would kill for that. So, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that the people review on that will be higher than The Last of Us Part 2, simply because The Last of Us Part 2 was so polarizing that a lot of people gave it like zeros for being, which is just crazy. Like, if you don't like the story, that's fine, but you have to judge a game on more than just the story. I mean, the gameplay in that game and everything else that goes with it is outstanding. So if it's only the story you don't like, then you have to give it, drop it 2 points for the story. Like, you still have to give it an 8 or a 9. Like, you can't give a game nothing because you hated the story. That makes no sense whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like, come on, people. Anyway, so yeah, I'm delighted with it. I'm delighted that it's been received really well from the reviewers, and I'm really looking forward to playing some more. Whether or not it's on or off camera, I'll see. But hopefully, whatever happens, that you guys have enjoyed the 2 episodes that I've done. I wouldn't mind doing a few more on camera, just because the first part is really just getting going. The second part is really just starting after you get the opening Ghost of Tsushima thing, after you get the whole opener. I mean, the first video is all the tutorial type stuff. You get a bit of fighting, and it's still good. There's loads of action in it, but the actual freedom comes at the part of the beginning of the second part of what I've recorded. So they will be going up, people, swift and fast tomorrow and Saturday. Well, I mean, I'll render them tonight, to be fair, and then I'll get them up while I'm sitting and chilling. I'll render this first, get it up, and while this is going up, I'll render the other 2 videos. Usually takes about an hour to record, an hour to render, and then an hour to upload. So that's the time scale. I mean, that's now. Like, when we get to next gen, if I actually buy the capture device from Elgato that can do 60 frames per second at 1080p or whatever it is, not 1080p, at 4K, or now I'm trying to remember. I looked at this, and I think there was a qualm with that. I don't think it could capture 60 frames per second at 4K. I think it can do 4K at 30 frames per second. So it'll be a balance as to which one I want to do and which one people want to see. But anyway, whichever way it works out, I'm still going to end up having to render longer, because the better the quality of the video, the more time it takes to render it. And on top of that, my rendering software, which is no longer sold, but I've used it for years and I just know how to use it, doesn't actually do anything above 1080p. So I would have to use different rendering software as well. I'll have to look into that. I'd have to look at getting Sony Vegas or something similar. Sony Vegas is a very popular one that a lot of the YouTubers use. So, shall we move on, people? Moving swiftly on to Sony upping the manufacturing of the PlayStation 5. And this is it's because I think they've realised how bloody big demand it is. But I think it's also about the fact that they've now know how production is going with the coronavirus and everything else going on. Obviously, a ways back, they didn't know just how many they could pump out, because they didn't know how many factories would be fully staffed and all that sort of stuff. So I think now that things are churning away in China, I think it looks like they're okay for pumping out more. They're basically doubling the manufacture of the PlayStation 5s from 5 million to 10 million by the year's end. And admittedly, by the time that all gets shipped out, some of that probably won't hit shelves in stores or Amazons until 2020, early 2020. But it's still good to know that if you miss day one, you're going to be able to get a console pretty swiftly. It's not going to be like the Nintendo Wii where it was just months and months and months without, some of it was like half a year, I think, waiting for a Nintendo Wii. There were so few of them. So, and considering how many units that sold in the end, it could have surpassed that if they'd actually been able to build more of them. They couldn't. They just hit capacity and that was that. So it's good to hear. I'm still a little bit disappointed that they've launched with a digital edition solely because it's probably taken away from the amount of stock available of the one that people will actually buy, which is the one with the disc. I think 90% of people will buy the one with the disc because they've got a PS4 library that they don't want to lose on disc. I think there's very few people out there that are so digital that the digital version is going to be good to them immediately. Because if you buy the digital, unless you're going to keep your PS4, of course, but I don't think many people want a duplicate console when they know the new one's going to play the old games anyway. So I still think I did a poll and there was like, I can't even remember now. It was hardly anybody had gone for the PS5 digital. I wonder if I can find it. It was on my community bit on. I put the question to you all, my channel and community. I only do a question a week pretty much, so PlayStation blah. Yeah, here we go. So yeah, it was after the PS5 reveal. So there was 29 votes and 93% of people were going for the one with the disc. And 7% were going for a digital. So, and that's no disc player. So that pretty much goes with what I just said. Like 90% of people are going to go for the disc. And if they've made 50% digital, 50% disc, then it's no wonder you're going to be short of consoles. It's mad. Absolute madness. When you know that you've got a production problem, I mean, it could, don't get me wrong, they might have done their homework and they might know only to make a certain amount of digital ones. But for me, I think it's an option that could have come later for me. But anyway, I'm hoping that they know this and they're going to make, 10% production is digital and 90% production is disc. I mean, I can't believe they would get that massive, wrong to the extent where it's 50-50 anyway. But it is frustrating because there will be people out there who can't get their hands on a disc one, and I bet you they can get their hands on a digital and don't want it. Is the way it'll end up happening, I think. But we shall see. Where's my notes gone? So there you go. Yeah, it's good news. Doesn't matter. Anyway, it's good news. There's another 5 million, manufactured in the space of, months, and they'll be ready and available, a lot of them pre-Christmas. So they are at least committing to getting more consoles in people's hands pre-Christmas if you miss the launch date. But, you're only... if we're getting a launch in November, I think the launches will be tail end of October. But the PS4 came in November, the early weeks of November. Was it the first week or the second week? But it was early November anyway. So I still... I don't know. I mean, Sony might go November just to give themselves more time. But I think definitely Xbox are going to go end of October. But... no, it could well be that PlayStation's November. It's an interesting point, actually, because I've got a note here to talk about console launch dates at the end of this, going by the games I was going to talk about, so we'll come back to it. Xbox Series X Velocity architecture, people. Here's one I'll need my glasses for. So, Xbox are starting to pump up the hype. Pump up the hype. Pump up the hype, pump up the hype, dance. Show me age again. Right. So they were basically going into the 4 core features of the Xbox Series X. And I don't know whether this is something they plan to be making a big deal of, outside of the fact, I think, because it feels like they're combating what people are saying about the architecture of the PlayStation 5. And, all of this to do, I keep doing it myself. I keep saying, well, the PlayStation 5 is going to be uberly fast because of this brand new architecture they've come up with. And now Microsoft are coming out and saying the same thing, but this is like months after PlayStation have basically said it. But whether or not these are like for like things, we don't know. So there's 4 things that this velocity architecture that they're talking about, the 4 key components are NVMe Ssd, which is the super fast SSD new stuff. You've got the hardware, SSD being the solid state drive. Sorry, I'm assuming that everybody knows what I'm talking about. So this is a solid piece of memory which stores all your games instead of a spinning hard disk. So it basically, the way this brand new RAM that they've come up with is faster than what is out there to buy as SSD RAM at the minute. So, we've seen demonstrations of it. But we're yet to see anything that's going to give us a true depiction. Well, not true actually. We've seen gameplay footage of Ratchet and Clank, and that's instantaneous flying through portals without any loading screens from level to level to level. So we know how fast it is, but that is with the PlayStation architecture. When we saw we saw a demonstration of State of Decay 2, maybe. I think it was State of Decay 2. And it showed you an Xbox One X and an Xbox Series X load screen. And I think the Series X took about 10 seconds and the Xbox One X took about 35 to 40 seconds or something. So it was a significant difference. I mean, in fact, the guy had run from where he had started all the way to a house and done loads of stuff by the time the other one had loaded up. And then people were like, but that's not instantaneous. But what they're saying is, yeah, but that wasn't a game designed for SSD and has not been tweaked for SSD. That is State of Decay 2 as it is right now without any tweaking, being shoved into an Xbox Series X and playing. Without anything being done to it, that's the difference that the Xbox Series X is going to bring. And for me, that's brilliant. That's outstanding. I'll take that. Hands down, I'll take it. And, and if they give us anything else with these games to give us proper enhancements for SSD, then fine. But everything going forward is going to be specifically designed to make use of that SSD that is super fast. And then you eliminate load screens nearly altogether. Or, well, they keep saying all together, but we'll wait and see, eh? We've then got hardware-accelerated decompression blocks. That's what I said. And this is to do from what... I'm going to read some official stuff, right? So let's rattle through them. Hardware-accelerated decompression blocks. Direct storage API layer I/O. Now, that's basically the architecture of what the SSD storage is going to be pushing all that data through, and that's what Sony have been going on about, that they've redesigned that entire infrastructure. And then you've got sampler feedback streaming, which I'm not remembering what that is, so we'll look at the notes. We'll look at the notes that I've got here. Okay, velocity architecture, blah blah blah. So custom NVMe SSD. The foundation of the Xbox Velocity architecture is our custom 1TB NVMe SSD delivering 2.4 gigabits per second gigabytes per second of raw I/O throughput, more than 40 times the throughput of an Xbox One. Traditional SSDs used in PCs often reduce performance as thermals increase or while performing drive maintenance. The custom NVMe SSD in Xbox Series X is designed for consistent, sustained performance as opposed to peak performance. Developers have a guaranteed level of I/O performance at all times, and they can reliably design and optimize their games, removing the barriers and constraints they have to work around today. This same level of consistent, sustained performance also applies to the Seagate expandable storage card ensuring you have the exact same gameplay experience regardless of where the game resides. So that is they're talking about there the extended RAM, because they're basically doing a Microsoft memory card, effectively the RAM card that you can stick in the back of the system to expand it, the Xbox Series X to expand it, and they're not going to be cheap, but I think a lot of people will go for them. Because 1 terabyte is not a lot, and you've got to take in mind that part of that 1 terabyte is going to go on the operating system and other things that they need. So you'll probably end up with about 800 gigabyte of that. However, there is something else that is a bonus to the fact that you won't be using as much of that space as you would now, for example. We'll get to that, which is the hardware accelerated decompression, I think. So here we go. Hardware accelerated decompression, which is the second part of this 4. Game packages and assets are compressed to minimize download times and the amount of storage required for each individual game. Now that's a massive bonus, that. If we can get games down, 50% would be awesome if this decompression will do it. But even like if we can get it down 70%, it's going to save you so much space. Like games are 100 gig at the minute. And what I loved about Ghost of Tsushima was it was only 35, 40 gig, I think. It wasn't a massive. And, so I don't know. I still feel like there's a level of... I could be really wrong here, and I apologise to any developer watching this, but it feels like the minute the devs had all of this new power in the PS4 and Xbox One and what have you, everything just seemed to get massive overnight, like really, really big. It was almost like, and I hate the word lazy because it seems a bit harsh, but it's almost like, oh, we don't need, but like we've got all this room and it's fine. We don't have to worry about it, so we'll not make any effort to curb the size of these games. And I think given this new technology, they'll be able to go, well, hang on a minute, we don't need to worry about it quite so much because we can use the decompression system and it'll make the game smaller anyway. So that'd be great. So I don't think it's a laziness thing. I think it's more the fact that they didn't really have anything to curb it with that was easy. And they didn't want to sacrifice how good the game was or what the quality of the game was just to bring the size of the game down, which is fair enough. So with hardware accelerated support for both the industry standard LZ decompressor, as well as a brand new proprietary algorithm specifically designed for the texture data named BC Pack, Xbox Series X provides the best of both worlds for developers to achieve massive savings with no loss of quality or performance. As texture data comprises a significant portion of the total overall size of a game, having a purpose-built algorithm optimized for texture data in addition to the general-purpose LZ decompressor, both can be used in parallel to reduce the overall size of a game package, assuming a 2-to-1 compression ratio. Xbox Series X delivers an effective 4.8 gigabytes per second in I/O performance to the title, approximately 100 times the performance in the current generation consoles. To deliver similar levels of decompression performance in software would require more than 4 Zen 2 CPU cores. So it's, it's massively impressive stuff, this. It really, really is. And it shows you the level of care that both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 have been given in design. And I don't think it was the same level of care that was given in the Xbox, certainly not the Xbox One or the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation 4 is a great enough console, but I think they just put as much power in there as they could and didn't really redesign an awful lot. I think, to some extent, they were both basically just PCs with a few specific tweaks. This gen sounds like they've gone to town on designing specific architectures to make console gaming the place to do it. New Direct Storage API. So this is the I/O stuff. This is the architect. Standard file I/O APIs were developed more than 30 years ago and are virtually unchanged, while storage technology has significant advancements since then. As we analysed game data access patterns as well as the latest hardware advancements in SSD technology, we knew we needed to advance the state of the art, to put more control in the hands of the developers. We added a brand new direct storage API to the DirectX family providing developers with fine-grained control of their I/O operations, empowering them to establish multiple I/O queues, prioritizing and minimizing I/O latency. These direct low-level access APIs ensure developers will be able to take full advantage of the raw I/O performance afforded by the hardware, resulting in virtually eliminating load times or fast travel systems that are just that fast. So yeah, that's basically what I was talking about. The architecture's been done to deal with the amount, the speed that the memory is going to be throwing it at the architecture. The architecture needs to be able to process it, and that's what that's talking about. Sampler feedback streaming, which is the one I couldn't remember what it was. Sampler feedback streaming is a brand new innovation built on top of all the other advancements of the Xbox Velocity architecture. Game textures are optimized at different levels of detail and resolution called MIP maps, and can be used during rendering based on how close or far away an object is from the player. As an object moves closer to the player, the resolution of the texture must increase to provide the crisp detail and visuals that gamers expect. However, these larger MIP maps require a significant amount of memory compared to the lower resolution MIPs that can be used if the object is further away in the scene. Today, developers must load an entire MIP level in memory, even in cases where they may only sample a very small portion of the overall texture. Through specialized hardware added to the Xbox One X, that should be Xbox Series X, we were able to analyze texture memory usage. Sorry, something popped up on my phone there as I was reading. By the GPU, and we discovered that the GPU often accesses less than a third of the texture data required to be loaded in memory. A single scene often includes thousands of different textures, resulting in a significant loss in effective memory and I/O bandwidth utilization due to the inefficient usage. With this insight, we were able to create and add new capabilities to the Xbox Series X GPU, which enables it not to only load the sub-portions of a MIP level into memory on demand, just in time for when the GPU requires the data. This innovation results in approximately 2.5 times the effective I/O throughput and memory usage above and beyond the raw hardware capabilities on average. SFS provides an effective multiplier on available system memory and I/O bandwidth, resulting in significant more memory and I/O throughput available to make your game richer and more immersive. So yeah, I mean, it's just something else on top of all that other benefits to not have to pass a whole bunch of stuff through the system that isn't ever going to be needed. So it passes it at the last minute, whether or not it's actually needed. So there you go. So it's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of fluff in there that a lot of us don't understand, including me, people. But it's interesting that they're coming out and talking about it, because it is talking about all the stuff that I've been going on about with PlayStation 5, and the fact that the Unreal Engine 5 folk and Epic and all that have been super quick to get onto the PlayStation 5's architecture because they just love it and the way that they've designed it. So it's going to be so interesting, as I said before, when Digital Foundry and all that do their comparisons to just what benefits we're getting from each console. And they could be very, very similar, but I've got a feeling there's going to be, because they couldn't possibly have known what each other were designing in an I/O capacity. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see just how different things are. You know, what's better in one and not better in the other, and vice versa. I think there'll be pros and cons to both of them, and I think they'll be pretty much on par. But there you go. So the Velocity architecture, people, something else to wrap your heads around. On top of that, the Xbox One X and the Xbox S, is it just Xbox One S, sorry, all digital version, are ceasing production in time for the Xbox Series X coming to us. And that makes sense. I'm a bit surprised about the Xbox One X. I mean, I would have been more inclined that... I mean, it's odd, isn't it? Like, if they're about to announce a cut-down... Oh, well, maybe not. Because if they're about to announce a cut-down version of the Xbox Series X, and that is basically an Xbox One X with a bit more oomph in it. So it actually does make perfect sense. But for some reason, they're still going to be producing the basic Xbox One S with the disc in it. So I'm not sure why you would want to keep. Well, I suppose if you got a really, really entry level system. Yeah, I mean, bear in mind they're going to be still making their first party games for cross platform, so or cross gen, I should say. So yeah, it makes some sort of sense. They still have the basic Xbox out there for people that can't afford the more Uber ones. So yeah, perfect sense. And there's no point having a digital version of the basic one. I think that'll come down in price anyway by nature. So yeah, it's going to be interesting though, and it's interesting that I mean, we as nobody knows for sure yet that the Xbox Series S is going to actually come to fruition. Everyone seems to think that it is at some point. It won't happen in this thing happening on the 23rd because that's all about games. I've made that perfectly clear. But I think it's going to be interesting because all the rumours have said that they're making a cut down version, not what PlayStation have done, which is just a discless version of the same thing. They're actually doing a cut down spec according to what we've heard. So what does that mean though? Does that mean, what are they going to do for a digital edition? Or is the digital edition only going to be part of the S series? But the very fact they've put the word series in there would suggest to me that they'll launch with 2 with discs. And then at some point after that, they'll do digital editions. So you'll have an Xbox Series X digital edition, Xbox Series S digital edition. And that's why the word series is there. Because what we're buying isn't an Xbox Series X. It's an Xbox. It's an Xbox. It's just the Series X version of the Xbox. That's all it is. And that's why they've called it that. So it is just an Xbox. And you say, which Xbox have you got? It's the Series X. Or the Series X digital. You know. So it isn't... My box isn't called the Xbox Series X. It's just called the Xbox. So, for my liking, I would have preferred them just to start with Xbox again. I mean, the Series X thing, I'm not really sure it's... Well, I don't know. It's a bit of a mouthful, though, isn't it? Xbox 2, Xbox. But they could have started with Xbox, you know, and then just referred to the old one as Xbox Original, which most folk do anyway. But there you are. So, yeah, so just on the back of that Xbox news. So, yeah, so we've got... Okay, finally, people, finally, we've moved swiftly. Not quite at an hour yet. We've been going. I think it was about... I can't see my clock on my laptop because I've got a little slideshow going for you, but I think we've been going for about 50 minutes or so, something like that. Let's talk about some games. So, Ubisoft have got quite a few big games coming out, not that far apart from each other. 2 of them are very close to each other. And interestingly, they're at times of which we think that the consoles might launch, people. They might. Can I take these glasses off now? Let's do that, shall we? Blimey, people. I'm old. I feel old enough without putting specs on. Good grief. So, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, there's been loads of gameplay footage coming up because they had an Ubisoft type of event, didn't they? And there was all sorts of Assassin's Creed Valhalla footage, Watch Dogs Legion footage, and Far Cry 6 was announced. So they've got those 3 games coming up. But within not long from each other, and one of them's not an Ubisoft game, but we've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, and Cyberpunk are all really close together. And... Oh, right. I didn't realise that was that close. That can't be right, can it? Oh, anyway, right. So we've got apparently Watch Dogs Legion on the 29th of the 10th, 20. So 29th of October, we've got Watch Dogs Legion. Then on the 17th of November, you've got Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And then Cyberpunk is coming out on the 19th of November. So Cyberpunk is 2 days after Valhalla. Now, they wouldn't normally be launching 2 massive titles like that within the same week. And Ubisoft said that their games would be out for the launch of the new... would be ready for the launch of the new consoles. So the console launches have to be before or on the 17th of November. So that's a bit of a time frame. Personally, I still think they'll try and get them out before the Black Friday thing, which I think's... is that late October or early November? I still think late October is a better window for everything, really. But anyway, yeah. So I mean, I watched the new footage of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It looks amazing, and it's all set in the Viking era and all that malarkey, and they're invading England and Britain and what have you. I've not found myself hooked in an Assassin's Creed game probably since three maybe. Um, yeah, I'm forgetting the name of it now. There was two, and then there was a follow up to two. Was it actually called three? I can't remember. It was Ezio anyway. And all the Ezio ones were great, apart from the very last one was kind of a bit of a stretch. But two was my probably my favourite because it was really well contained. It was enough open world, and there was a lot of joy in that game. I say favourite, I still adore the first one. I still prefer the character in the first one, the time frame of the first one, the darkness of it. But two was a great leap into a brilliant Italian world. I mean, it was really, really, really cool. So I bounced between one and two being my favourite, but one was just. But I feel like ever since the Ezio journey ended, I feel like Assassin's Creed's not known what to do with itself. It just seems to want to find pockets of history and not really build anything on the whole mysterious apple and all of that, like what was going on with the Templars and the Assassin's Creed and all that. So I've not played the new ones enough to know just how deep that story is, but I don't think like the wonder of that story has vanished from what I've played of Assassin's Creed games of recent years. And it's almost like they're not really bothered about that deep story anymore. They're just bothered about, I've got a blade in my wrist and that makes me an assassin. So, you know what I mean? What's that about? I could be completely wrong. I mean, there might be a very deep story to it all, but I would have to play them. I mean, I started playing, not Odyssey, the one before it, Origins. My son gave me that to play, and I got kind of into it, and then I just kind of got bored. Odyssey's supposed to be really good, and I haven't tried that yet. So I might get around to it at some point, but I just went right off them. I just feel like with the older ones, I think you felt like there was some sort of continuity going on with what was happening. With these ones, it's like, let's just pick a random place that people want us to do in time and do it. And I don't think there's enough thought going into the continuation of what that story is. But I mean, I could be completely wrong about that because I haven't played them, but that's how it feels at the minute. That gameplay footage and everything they showed off and the story trailer and everything else, it only seems to suggest it's a Viking wanting to invade Britain and take over this, that, and the next thing, and there's nothing about any deep story about the Assassin's Creed and how it's developing and what happened. You know, it's no sort of timeline that I'm aware of. Watch Dogs Legion is probably it sometimes interests me and then sometimes doesn't. The original Watch Dogs was okay, it wasn't amazing, and I felt like they would build on it and just bring that character back and go for it again, making it better and more and putting more in the world. But they didn't do that. They turned it into something else, Watch Dogs something else that I can't remember. It looked like a bunch of roof runners that I couldn't be bothered with, so I didn't take any part in that. This one looks interesting because it's in Britain and you can literally pick anyone off the street and make them part of your legion and part of your fighting crew. And it does look really interesting. It'll be interesting to see just how well it does that. And it looks visually amazing. London looks fantastic. All the key markers are all there, all the key landmarks and buildings. And it does look really, really fun. There's a lot of humour in it from the clips I was watching and stuff. So I hope that game does well, to be fair, because it's a franchise I hoped would do well. But again, it's almost like, well, we've got the word Watch Dogs now, so we might as well just keep pushing that franchise out. But is there any is there any relevance to Watch Dogs 1 from Watch Dogs 2 from 1 or 3 from 2? It just seems like we'll just put the word Watch Dogs on it because we've branded Watch Dogs now and it's a good name, so let's just keep using it. But I'm hoping it does well, because I'm hoping that they come up with the Watch Dogs games that's sort of universally loved. But we'll see how that turns out. Far Cry is another franchise that Far Cry 3, I finished that. I got really into it and finished it. I'm sure I did. Far Cry 4, yeah, I did. Oh God, no! Wait a minute now. No, I finished Far Cry 4. I'm not sure that I. No, I think I might have finished both of them actually. Now that I think about it, 5. I didn't finish Primal, but I did like it. Was it Far Cry Primal or Primeval? Primal, yeah, Primal. But it was good though. I'm not sure. I got pretty far into that game, but I don't think I finished it. And then there was Far Cry 5, which I've not played at all. I didn't fancy that whole America thing. And this new one is back to somewhere sort of tropical, I think. It looks sort of Latin American type vibe to it. There wasn't any gameplay as far as I remember from the clip I was watching. It was just a story trailer of this dictator and his son and the people all, rebelling and all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of this place in chaos that I suspect we're going to end up in and have to deal with. But they're really fun games, though. I mean, I'm sure 5 is fun enough, but I just didn't fancy that world. Can't be doing with cults and stuff, people. You know what I mean? It's all about. But 3 and 4, I thoroughly enjoyed them. Yeah, it was 4 with the sort of blonde guy that was the bad guy, wasn't it? I definitely finished that. I'm just trying to remember if I finished 3, but I'm sure I did. But yeah, Far Cry 6 might get me back into it at some level, but they were really fun games to play. The action was superb, really, really well carried out. But like most Ubisoft games, it's always whether or not the map's interesting enough to me, because if all it is like clouded over map, do something here to unlock this section of map, and then go around all those things like picking that up or killing that guy. And that's where things get a bit boring for me. And I know you don't have to do them all, but it baffles my brain as to why there can't be more thought and care put into those areas of absolute interest. And I always go back to The Witcher, Witcher 3, as being the best RPG I've probably played, because it absolutely killed it when it came to go there and do this quest, because every quest was interesting. Every quest had a linked story to the world you were in. And it was just phenomenally done. And I honestly can't think of another RPG that has done it that well. So I just hope going forward that other developers can find that magic. Like, why is it so hard to come up with proper interesting stories as side quests? If you're going to put that much effort into a game, I'd rather have half the amount you've put in that world and make that half that you've left really interesting to do. That's what I would rather have, rather than, a gazillion really boring things I don't want to do. Give me half of that map with really interesting stuff. So I'm hoping going forward that we're going to get more of that, rather than just bigger and bigger maps. And to some extent, I feel like Ghost of Tsushima has done that to some extent so far as the world goes. I do feel like running around that map and doing things may get repetitive, but from the little bit that I did, I thought, right, well, I'm definitely going to have to do that in multiple locations. So it's going to be interesting to see if they've put any lore in there that actually is fun to play through story-wise. So I think there will be, and it's not going to be the level of Witcher 3, that stands on its own at the minute, but yeah. Cyberpunk I honestly have no interest. I know it's like everyone's hyped for it. I don't understand why Witcher 3 fans are excited about Cyberpunk. Like, it's not. I don't think that game's going to be an RPG. I think it's going to be an open world. I think it feels like an open world Grand Theft Auto first person. Sorry, Grand Theft Auto is open world, but first person Grand Theft Auto in some Cyberpunk universe. It certainly doesn't feel like an RPG, but there might be a lot of RPG elements in it, but I'm not a fan of futuristic type stuff. It's very rare that I get hooked on something. So the fact that it's first person, the fact that it's that world, the fact that it's in the future or whatever it is, driving fast cars, and it's not my bag, baby. It's not. I'm sure it'd be awesome, but it's just not for me. So I have no want for that game at all. Far more likely to go for one of those Ubisoft games than I am for Cyberpunk. I mean, I wish it all the best. I'm sure that. I mean, I know it's going to be a massive success, but for me, it's not for me. Same with Grand Theft Auto. I mean, it's just not for me. The only fun I ever got out of Grand Theft Auto was the Vice one, because it had all that 80s music and stuff in it. And the only other game like that I adored was Sleeping Dogs. For anyone that watches the channel would know that. And I've bought it again on the Xbox One, just so I've got an excuse to play it again for for G's. But I've played that game on the 360, the PlayStation, the PS3, the remaster on the PlayStation 4, and now I've got it for the Xbox One. I just adore that game, Sleeping Dogs. It's just so good. And the reason that it was good is because it didn't go too big. It made you an open world Hong Kong. It gave you all the fun stuff to do. It kept a really good story in the middle of it, and it was enough. Like, it knew when to finish. And sadly, that company went bust, and we'll never see another one. But, well, unless somebody buys the IP, of course. Well, I'm sure, in fact, there's probably a publisher that owns the IP, just no one's making it. But what a cracking game that was, and I'd love someone to pick up that IP and make us a sequel to that game. So good. So there you are, people. I think that's it. I think we've reached the end of our list. I think we might have reached the hour mark. Not that I was aiming for an hour. I just felt like there was a lot to talk about in that podcast. So let me know in the comments below about any of those things, people. Let me know if you've got Ghost of Tsushima and if you're enjoying it. No spoilers, please. And let me know any thoughts on the PlayStation 5 or the Xbox Series X Velocity architecture, or any of those games I was just talking about, Far Cry 6. Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, Cyberpunk, any of it at all, people. Leave some comments in the comments below. I hope you're all going to have a lovely weekend. I hope you managed to catch up with some of my content over it. I will get these Ghost of Tsushima Let's Plays, I was going to say footage there, Let's Plays up for you tomorrow and Sunday, so that you've got a bit of extra content coming from me this week. I actually enjoyed doing the Let's Play a little bit. It was good. I mean, so to some extent, it actually helps me play a game when I'm talking to myself. It's like saying it out loud actually makes it sink in a bit more, you know what I mean? So yeah. Let me know, and let me know in those videos when they come along. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of the footage you saw of me playing. If you haven't bought it yet, if it's made you get interested in it. I know there's quite a few who've already commented either on the channel, or I've seen you comment on Twitter about the fact that you've got it and you're really enjoying it as well. So there you are. Let me know in the comments below about any of those things, people, any of the topics we've been talking about tonight. I hope you're still enjoying this podcast way of me doing things. I'm thoroughly enjoying doing it like this. I actually feel a bit more comfortable so far as I've got the big chair and I can, chill out and chat casually. So I really like the format. I might try and find some way of not having to lug stuff about quite so much as I do, to just be able to sit here with the TV behind me. But at the moment, I can't see any other way of doing it. But there you are. I ramble on, people. Flagons up once again to you all. I will do it under the microphone. It has been an honour and a privilege serving for you in this podcast of mine today, and I shall see you all in the next one, folks. Take it easy. Bye.